Hi everyone, it's Jerry. This is a round 5 game from the 2013 Tal Memorial between the world's #1 ranked player Magnus Carlsen versus the current world chess champion Viswanathan Anand. This is the last time they will play until November of 2013, where at that point Carlsen will challenge Anand for the World Chess Championship title. So this will certainly be a game both players will look back on, and in this one we get to see the Nimzo-Indian defense. And in response to it, we see this E3 and Knight E2 system by Carlsen. And after the D5 strike, we have A3. This is the idea, to connect the knights and only then question the bishop. Anand is not so quick to give up the bishop pair, dropping back to E7. C takes D, knight takes D, and now the tame bishop D2. Initially, it's there to meet knight takes with bishop takes, and that will be a strong post for the bishop. And there is also a deeper meaning that we will be seeing highlighted soon enough. But first, knight D7, G3, B6, and now knight takes on D5. This is not the first time that I question the timing of moves. In this case right here, it's no exception. Why now? Why on this move 10 is Carlsen capturing on D5? It could have been played a couple moves sooner, but why now? If you'd like to, pause the video, see if you can come up with some reasons on your own, and I'll just share my own thoughts. Okay, the reason I'm seeing for this capture at this moment right now is maybe best seen by looking one move back. Why, well, let's say instead of a G3, why not capture right now? Well, notice how white is helping black. By capturing on D5 now, this bishop can come out along this diagonal. And so after G3, knight F6, again, it could play to F5, it could play to E6. Maybe there's ideas of bishop H3 stuff. In short, by being a little bit patient, by white being a little bit patient and not capturing on D5 right away, maybe it turns out that this B6 move falls into the unnecessary category. Only after black has expended a move to open a door for this bishop along the C8 to A6 diagonal does white capture on D5 to open this door. And I say maybe it falls into the unnecessary category because there could be some purpose behind B6. And that purpose, the only purpose that I can see behind it, is to eventually play C5, where at that point, if there ever is a capture, black is there to recapture with the pawn, resulting in a hanging pawn structure and maintaining control over the D4 square. This is not a direction we go in this game. We never do get to see C5 by black, but again, just some things to think about regarding the timing of moves and the potential structural changes that could come about, and whether or not B6 maybe turns out to be purposeful or not so purposeful. In any event, on move 10 is when we see knight takes. We have the recapture, the bishops come out, and now that deeper meaning of the bishop D2 move, we have now bishop to B4 offering a bishop exchange. And to be more exact, we have the offer of white's bad bishop for black's good bishop, something that we can infer by the fixed nature of the pawns in the center. And this tension is maintained, and it might be a bit appealing to capture. And I say that it might be a bit appealing to capture because if you're describing your own pawn structure as doubled and isolated, that's usually something to steer clear of. But in this instance, it's an exception because white has play along the A file, and it makes this C5 break less appealing for black. Why is it less appealing? Well, notice what would happen after the smoke clears. If we did enter this structure, notice the wonderful home for the knight on the D4 square. This is not a direction black wants to go in. So just some food for thought of what would happen if this capture occurs. Instead, it's knight F6, white castles, both players get a rook on a half-open file, and now C6 to reinforce the D5 point. Bishop takes, rook E1. I can't wrap my head around why exactly that capture was made when it was. And one of the things that I looked into to try to better understand the timing of that particular move was to see what White's follow-up move would be. That move being this last one, move 16, rook to e1. I can't say for certain, but the best reason that I could come up with is that Carlsen doesn't want to give Anand the possibility of maybe changing the structure, wants to keep the structure on the queen side as is, and White now wants to run forward with a very clear and a very direct plan. And that very clear and direct plan involves a central breakthrough, and we will see that take shape soon enough. But first, some repositioning for both sides with first queen d6, knight f4, and in a roundabout way. So, okay, this bishop is going back home, and it will be going to this e6 square to watch over the pawn. We have queen a4, piling up on c6, black is there to defend. And now the central breakthrough, f3 and e4. And this turns out to be quite powerful, and you can't prevent it. It's going to happen. White has enough support for it. The queen is there to provide lateral defense to the d4 pawn. After this particular capture, black would have pressure on it, but again, white is there to defend. Bishop e7, and here we go with e4, already threatening this e5 tactic of a fork. D takes, f takes, two pawns in the center, supported. This threat is still present with e5. We have the queen dropping back, and now we don't see this advance. Playing this e5 move allows this knight to take up a nice post on d5. Instead, we have d5, breaking down this structure, opening up the position where all of White's pieces are playing, and this rook is still not playing just yet. And one other thing to look into, as this position is now changing with these pawn advances and these pawn captures, another detail to have in the back of your mind as White as to maybe why this particular opening up of the position would be beneficial to you is to look at your king position. Notice how there might be some issue on the black side regarding the back rank. Still, the black king does not have a flight square. So, c takes d. The queens come off first, and after the recapture we have knight takes bishop. And the idea behind this is to now make better use of the minor piece. That's the main battle at this point, and to show that this bishop is going to be better than the knight. So Carlsen first hits at e6. This pawn is also pinned to the rook, and there's not a convenient way to defend against e6. For example, if rook to e7, well, this pawn can't capture and it's still being hit. This is definitely not a road to go down. Black ends up in a fork. This knight is going to be picked off. And if this other rook comes over, well, we have this going on. And if the knight or rook takes, it's still going to run into another fork, just showing one variation. Still results in a fork. There's a big problem with this king being on a light square and White having a light square bishop. This concrete line is really dooming black in a big way. There's not a great move in this position, and as we'll see, the move king h8, it's a sad move to have to make, to throw your king in the corner. Going in the other direction runs into, I believe, even bigger trouble, because after this push, let's just say the knight plays here, bishop takes, there's going to be big trouble. The rook has to keep a close eye on the pawn. We have rook getting to the 7th rank, and now there's possibilities for the rook invading along the f-file. This king is caught in a crossfire if he plays to f8. So instead, Anand goes to the corner. e5 and then bishop to e6. I believe those two moves you could play in... the order does not matter of those moves. I think you could capture on e6 and then play e5, but e5 is played first. The knight goes back home. Bishop takes, the rook drops back. You have to still keep a close eye on d5. Rook to the 7th. It's a sad story here for black. The knight is back home. The king is in the corner, and I don't believe, other than this capture on e4, black has ever placed a piece on the white side of the board. And there's just dominating positions. This rook is not even contributing at this point. Anand tries to run with this pawn, but after bishop d7, this position is strong enough for white where Anand throws in the towel. There's not a good way to proceed. How do you activate the rooks is one question that there's not a good answer to. What do you do with the knight that's still on its home square? This pawn is passed and firmly supported by the bishop. This bishop is anchored on this bishop will be anchored on the d7 square. This pawn is sure to fall soon enough, and even if one day, let's say this pawn of white's on the e-file is captured, it's going to take a very long time to do just that. And keep in mind, white could always go after, let's say, these queenside pawns if we did see that take shape. If black is somehow organizing a way to pick up this e5 pawn, excuse me, the e pawn, white is going to be able to get play against the queen pawns. Let me just run with some variation here, something like this. Well, the knight has to watch over this pawn here from advancing. So something like this. This rook stays active on the 7th rank. This pawn will be picked off, and this king could even get involved at some point, maybe even doubling rooks on the 7th rank. Black is in a giant knot, and there's no way to make there's no way to improve the position from here. And one other thing to reference in this game is, well, it's not exactly clear how there's a way to improve for black. It's one of those computer-like games, and some things that I look into, just reflecting back on this game, are maybe the strength of that bishop to d2 move and exchanging the white's bad bishop for black's good bishop, and saddling black as a result with a bad bishop, their light square bishop that again was doing a little dance earlier on, playing to b7 and then c8 and then eventually going to e6, where it was captured by the knight later. So those are some things that I look into to try to help my own understanding of why this game progressed as it did, and I hope that sharing those thoughts, as always, helps your own game. So that's all for this video. As always, I hope you got something out of it. Take care. Bye.